What really matters in the CV.
We want to see what you did. What you're telling me is that you are applying to something you have never tried before. We want to know that. There is no perfect CV. It's very hard for someone to understand what you did. If your CV is very you didn't put enough effort.
I'm sure that's going to be super valuable. A lot of people are not able to come to the US for their US clinical experience.
You cannot come to the US to do a clinical experience.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's episode is really special, not just because of the topic, but because we have an incredible guest with us. I'm joined by Dr. Camelia, who is not just an incredible neurologist, but also someone I look up to immensely. She's an IMG from Cuba, was the chief resident at Tufts University, and now pursuing her fellowship at Johns Hopkins Hospital. She walked the path many of us are on today, from navigating the match as an immigrant to sitting on the other side of the table, reviewing applications, interviewing people, and helping shape residency classes. Before we dive in, Camelia, thank you so much for taking out time to talk to us. And I know how busy you are, but I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today. Would you like to say a quick hello? Yeah. And share something about your story with everyone watching this video.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Brenda. It's an honor for me to be here with you and help so many people who we both know that has been on this long pathway. So thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure. I would share a little bit about me. I'm from Cuba, as you mentioned, and I did med school in Cuba. And I did my first part of residency there, which means I did 3 years of neurology residency in Cuba. And then I came to the US and I did some clinical rotations while doing the USMLE and doing some research. And I matched in neurology at Tufts Medical Center, which is my beautiful home. So I matched at Tufts for residency and I grew so much there. It's my home program. I learned so much. I really lived my neurology residency with a lot of passion, a lot of sleepless hours, and I'm very happy to now be in my fellowship neuro ICU. So I'm here to answer any questions you guys have, and I'm happy to always be a support of anyone in this journey.
Oh, thank you so much. And that was lovely. I'm sure so many people are going to relate to this story, and it's very inspiring. So today we are going to be talking about what really matters in the CV, since you have been on the other side of the table reviewing the applications. So you can share something about how an IMG's application can stand out. We can start from there. And then we can also talk about something about US clinical experiences and personal statements and interviews. There's so much that we can learn from you. But let's start with CV and reviewing the applications from your end. What would make an IMG stand out?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And I think I want to start by saying there is no perfect CV. Everyone's CV is unique. And important things to make a CV stand out is, first of all, avoid gaps. I think that's super, super important. We come to this journey with different years of graduation, different clinical experiences, different years of research. Make sure you show a timeline in your CV, because when people are reviewing them, we want to see what you did. Avoid gaps. That's super important, number one. No gaps. Number two, and I think it's also very important, is try to tailor your CV or your clinical experience to the specialty you're applying to. So Brenda and I were both in the neurology field. And if we are interested in neurology, you should show that in your CV. Some research topics should be in neurology. Some of your clinical experiences should be in neurology. The more the merrier. If you don't have any experience in the specialty you're applying to, it doesn't mean you cannot apply. Of course not. This is a journey where everyone's pathway is different. You can always apply, but it would make you less a strong candidate if you have no experience in that field. Because what you're telling me is that you are applying to something you have never tried before. Other important things, and I think it's very valuable, in your CV, make sure you put other unique skills that you have. Are you multilingual? Right? How many languages do you speak? Have you worked in underserved communities? How? What type of underserved community? Did you volunteer in a rural hospital? Did you volunteer for a community, very low income community dining? Did you volunteer for like helping screening for STDs in a very difficult, challenging socio-demographic background area? We want to know that because as a resident, what most of the programs are looking for is we need someone that is able to bring flexibility, resilience, and someone who is able to treat everyone the same way. So show whatever unique skill you have. Do you play the piano? Tell us about it, right? Do you have amazing skills because you do bird watching? Talk about that. Maybe that's a skill that makes you a good researcher and makes you a good observer in clinical exam. Remember, those unique skills are yours and what makes you a good candidate. I don't think any program looks for the standard perfect candidate. I think every program wants to meet people who wants to learn, wants to work, and wants to grow together. So if you can show that in your CV, of course, it's not only the CV, right? It's the CV and the personal statement and the letters of recommendation.
Of course, I think that's very valuable advice. Some great points. Next question is, what are some common mistakes you have seen in the CV or applications that the applicants should avoid?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question. I think number one, and maybe that's my pet peeve, typos and poor formatting. Please make sure you proofread your CV. If you show a CV and there is grammatical mistakes, that tells me you didn't prepare it enough. You didn't put enough effort. There are so many ways to proofread your CV. Give it to your mentor. Give it to your peer, your colleagues. Pass it through an AI who can also proofread it. Use a different type of like Google reviewer. Like there are so many ways to proofread. So that's like very basic. Number two is formatting. And I think this is important because any program who receives thousands of applications and have to read through CV, I think it's so hard if the CV is big, long paragraph. Thankfully, ERAS has an homogeneous CV formatting. Stick to that format. Use that format and make sure when you use a clinical experience, you put the name, the hours, what did you do, and the specific skills that you learn or practice in that area. Put them in bullet points. Don't make long paragraphs. It's very hard to read. One important other thing is like when you do your timeline of work experience, research experience, education experience, hobbies, and then the other part, which is like presentations and things like that or others. When you organize it, make sure there is a flow, right? Not only a chronographical flow, but a way for the people who read it to understand. It's very hard for someone to understand what you did. If your CV is very scattered and then your personal statement doesn't even talk about any of that, then the person who's reading your CV gets a little lost.
Yeah, I think that's super important because we never pay attention because we are not on the other side. So we might just not know the like small things, bullet points, mentioning number of hours, some skills that we learned at the end, some qualities that, we learned. So I think that's super important, the small things to pay attention to.
And I think another important thing, because everyone's clinical experience is different, describe what you did. If you were doing 10 hours a week in a community hospital, or you were doing 6 weeks in a big academic hospital, it doesn't matter what was it, describe it. You attended rounds, you help preparing case presentation, you attending grand rounds, you help discussing cases, you help on physical exam, or you learn collecting data. Like describe what you did so the person reading, when you say observers in specific institution, in this specific specialty, was that inpatient or outpatient? How many hours of each did you do? Those details, I think, are very important because it would tell the person how much really hands-on you have when you are applying.
Right. I'm sure that's going to be super valuable, like inpatient versus outpatient hours, some skills at the end to summarize like what they learned out of that rotation. Thank you. That's really important. Another question, that since you mentioned about US clinical experience, so this is a question that I get asked very often nowadays. A lot of people are not able to come to the US for their US clinical experience and rotations. because of some financial reasons or family reasons, or just not able to secure a visitor visa to travel. So for them, what is your advice? How can they make their CV more appealing without even coming to the US?
That's a great question. I would say it is very important to have US clinical experience. It's probably one of the things that most of the program would look for, at least one, because it's a way for us to know if you have dealt with the US healthcare system, if you have been in contact and interact with a round system or outpatient system. Do you know how to properly discuss cases in English? So as much as we can, let's try to get some of them. Now, I 100% agree with this is a very important question because we are in a challenging moment and not everyone is getting the visa. So if that's the case for you, when you don't have a chance to come here for a clinical experience, that's okay. Work on making your CV strong some other ways. Make sure you have more research, right? And you can do research in the US from another part of the world, right? You can always kind of like apply this study, do a meta-analysis, do a common work with someone that you know that is doing similar research in the US. You can do a multi-center study if you have a good mentor from your home country. You can try to do systematic reviews or peer reviews. So work on making your CV better on research and make sure you have good scores. That way, your lack of US clinical experience can compensate with something else. And again, I want to really reemphasize no one pathway is the same, and people can match without having the perfect CV and without having the perfect research part. If you can have all of them, great. That will be extremely encouraged. But if not, there is always way to compensate. One more thing I wanted to say there is kind of a hybrid, very non extremely common, but it started in pandemic, which is called tele-rotation. I think more and more programs stopped doing them after the pandemic, but I am pretty sure some of them still are doing them. So if you cannot come to the US to do a clinical experience here in-house, you can always come and do tele-rotations, which means, sorry, not come. You can always try to connect with a program, apply for a tele-rotation observership, and then you can do while you are in your hometown or somewhere else in the world. You can actually participate in grant rounds, participate in Zoom meeting discussions of cases, participate in research meetings. It's another way to have clinical experience without having to be here.
Yeah, I think that's another great way. During COVID, when I came to the US for the rotations and like used to go back to India for after 6 months you have to return back. So in that time, I used, because I wanted to stay consistent with the rotations and the US clinical experience. I also did like 2 tele rotations while I was there in India. So I think that's super helpful to fill up the gaps as well, and also to be in touch with the US healthcare system. It's not the best, but it's definitely better than nothing. So that's a great way too. Thank you.
I also had my experience. I believe medicine, which I applied in the middle of pandemic. So they're definitely very helpful. You can also get access to EMR. You can see video lectures. So
yeah, I'm sure that's definitely better than having nothing and no US clinical experience at all. So yep. That's one thing. And another question is, how much weight do things like research, volunteering, or teaching carry in decision making? Like you emphasized about research. What are your thoughts on volunteering or any kind of teaching activity? Does that really hold a lot of importance in the decision making at the end?
That's a great question. And I think, context always matters. You don't want to do just a random research to have a checkbox. I did research. You want to do a research that is meaningful for your pathway. If you have a case presentation, like you presented in a poster, it's not a big research, but it's something that would show you're interested in this specialty, your curiosity. If you have been working on a big institution as a research coordinator, research fellow, that would be great. Try to make sure that's aligned with what you want. I think the most important thing is that research has a big weight as long as it's part of your pathway, right? I think the most important part when most of the programs look at CV, it's probably making sure that you have done some research which show that a curious person wants to learn more. Now, it is not absolutely mandatory. It's as we said before, if you have a lot of good clinical experience and you have great scores, you might not have a lot of research, but you might be able to say in your interview and in your letter of and in your personal statement, look, I don't have research experience, but I want to learn. I have research questions in my mind. So one of my things I want to learn in residency is how to do research. So always put it in context. Whatever is the area that you're lacking, if it's an area that you want to grow on, you can always do that in residency.
Right.
I think the same goes with volunteer and volunteer experiences. I think for volunteer, we don't want to know if when you were a teenager, you volunteer in a community art program. Yeah, that might be very beautiful and that might be talk about how of an open person you are. We talk about your artistic skills. But in your application, the volunteer we want to talk about and that we want to know is like, have you volunteered in hospitals or community hospitals? Have you volunteered helping specific screening for diseases? Have you volunteered as a free doctor care if you finish? And we know most of us come from very low income countries. And we know that we do a lot of volunteer in our countries, but make sure that did you create a program? Did you create a program for enhancing, I don't know, awareness of breast cancer? We want to know about that. Did you lead a med school division on neuronerds? We want to know about that. Make sure these volunteer and teaching experience are also tailored to what you're applying to. So teaching, for example, if you won teaching awards, if you went the extra mile and you mentor students or you tutor students, we want to know those because a good resident would always be simultaneously becoming a good teacher. So try to make sure that your volunteer experience and your teaching experience that you're showing in your CV are also showing how of a good multi-hat person you are, which means, yes, you're here to work and learn, but also you like to teach and you encourage others to do the same. And also you go way out of your way to help communities in need. I think as long as you make them in the right context, those are extremely important, but don't just put something random just to check a box. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, no, of course. I think that was super, super useful. Sometimes people like, okay, cut again, add it, guys. Add it. All right. So sometimes people I've seen, I've just reviewed a couple of CVs and I've seen what exactly you mentioned that somebody's applying to neurology, but the research is in something like completely different subject. I feel now personally my CV as well. Initially, when I began research, I had no idea. I think right now also I'm struggling. I'm learning, not struggling, but I'm learning every day. So initially, when I was taking, when I started doing some kind of research, I used to take up everything and anything that used to come my way, any role, writing, editing, gathering data, stuff like that. But eventually I started, now that I've learned it, I started tailoring to neurology that, okay, now I know how to, look for ideas, new topics. And that's when you start tailoring your research profile as well. So it's fine if you don't get anything and you want to work on something, you can definitely start somewhere, but then you want to be focused. You always want to tailor it. That's what I think I understood from whatever you explained, that you want it to be specific to the specialty you are interested in. Right. Yeah.
absolutely. Like we all start somewhere else. I did dengue research. I did pediatric research.
Yeah.
Like we all have research in our CV that is not directed to ours. But what we want to see, if I open your CV and you have 3 research, at least one of them should be in the area of interest.
Exactly.
It's okay if you did 3 years of getting data collection for dermatologist research because that's what you found and that's what helped you start. Absolutely. But then make sure you tailor. So at the end, it shows that you go to neurology or whatever other specialty you're applying to.
Right. Thank you, Camelia. I think that's super helpful. So, next question is also something we get frequently asked. That is, with the change in the new application, we have 3 meaningful experiences that we are supposed to mention. So, as a reviewer, would you like to see 3 meaningful experiences all as US clinical experiences, or it can be a mix of one volunteer, one research, teaching, anything? Or is there a hard set?
So I think the way we look at them, and This last year was my first time reviewing. Of course, as a chief resident, we get the opportunity to sit with the program director and the leadership to learn and help interviewing. And I think the most important thing of how ERAS try to make this better for the programs while reviewing is that if you choose meaningful experience, you're going to tell us a lot of things from them. You're going to tell us what's meaningful for you. You're going to tell us what was the things you learned from that experience and why were they meaningful. So I don't think there is a set in stone way to answer them. I think the most important thing is something that was meaningful for you, right? Was that meaningful experience a clinical experience in the US? Yes, 100% put it there. But maybe your meaningful experience was your underserved work for 1 year of an intern in a rural area in India or in Cuba. Then put it there. Maybe your meaningful experience was the first time you did research because you learned so much. You learned how to analyze data. You learned how to come up with questions. You presented a poster for first time. So your meaningful experience would change depends on your experience. And if they are like clinical versus research versus volunteer, you can always make it a good experience to share and a good experience to talk about during your interview. So make sure you pick things that you really are proud of, either because you learned something from them or you help people with them, or it really was something that changed you somehow. I think that's how we should approach them. And I think that's how, when a program director is looking at your CV or a committee of interviews looking at your CV, if you show me in those meaningful experience, three different things, right? One, that you're a good learner, one, that you're a good teacher, and one, that you are a good clinician or a hardworking person, you're already showing your values through them. Another way to look at them is that you can do variety of experiences or variety of values that you want to talk about. And for the impactful one, I think that what we want to know is that what was that type of impact? Was that an impact because you actually helped diagnose breast cancer in 200 women? Hopefully not. I mean, hopefully not, because there's a lot of breast cancer, but maybe yes. And that was extremely impactful. Or maybe what you did that was impactful because in your med school, you helped develop a program to tailor students who want to go into endocrine. And you create this group and it made an impact because you actually helped them discuss questions, create a pathway to endocrinology or internal medicine or psychiatry or surgery. I'm just making an example. So I think both of these options in the new ERAS formatting are meant to actually show up something from your CV that might be completely missed if we just stay to the standard format of the CV.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. I just to add on to that, I think I followed a similar format in the three meaningful experiences. Something that really changed my perspective and it helped me also to grow a lot was tutoring for step 2, step 3. So I definitely added my teaching experience in the meaningful section. One of the experiences, another was research, because research was something that I've never done in like during the medical school, even like after medical school. It was only until last year or just a year before that I really started learning about research. And last year when I did a significant project, that's when it really changed my perspective about research as well. I had this huge mental block that okay, research, no, I just don't know it. But after doing that and learning things, it just felt that it's pretty doable. You have a lot of fun in learning so much of data that is out there already and stuff like that. So again, how you mentioned that really changed my perspective. So my second meaningful experience was research, and one meaningful experience was, of course, one of my most favorite clinical experiences in the US, where I learned the most, which was with you guys. And yeah, that was about my three meaningful experiences. All right.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Like you one teaching, one research, one clinical. It's a very nice way, but it's not the only one. So yeah. Thank you for asking that question.
No. Of course, thank you for answering this. This is really, because sometimes we are caught up in this, that there's so much data out there. There's so much stuff that is roaming around on internet, and then you get swayed that, okay, somebody's CV is looking like this, let me also tweak it in mine. Somebody's personal statement is like this, let me tweak it. But getting your perspective as somebody who is reviewing applications, that changes a lot. And I really hope that these answers are helpful to people and they can learn something out of it. Alrighty,
Thank
so
you.
those are questions about CV, and I think super helpful. So thank you so much, Camelia, for answering all these CV related questions, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I'm always happy to come back if there are more questions coming up.
Sure, thank you.
CV creating, it's a journey for life. We have to make CVs for fellowship application, and then we have to make CV for job application. So it's an ongoing process.
All right, guys. So thank you so much, Camelia. People who are watching this video who needs a list of the tips that Camelia shared, I have documented them, and you can just write DM in the comments, and I can send the list over to you. Thank you for watching.